Thank you so much for joining us once again. It's Hot Seat right here on the People's Telly. I am Moses Ojewumi. Of course, on this show, we interview those that have reached the top. In fact, the zenith, of their career. They talk about, we talk about present issues. They talk about their career challenges and prospects and all of that. And on the show today, my guest from the Ivory Tower, a Nigerian academic, is a chemical engineer, a professor of chemical engineering and a former vice chancellor of University of Lagos. Are you connecting the dots already? Professor Raham Bello. You're welcome to the show, Professor.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Okay, very quickly, let's get to see his profile. We'll be right back. And that was the profile of my guest, Professor, Raham Bello. I mean, what's a staggering CV or profile there? Yes, an academic and former vice chancellor of University of Lagos. So let's sink our teeth into it. Welcome to the show once again, Professor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, like I did say that, I mean, you did reach, at the zenith, I mean, becoming the Vice Chancellor of University of Lagos, what many professors could only dream of course. Not every professor becomes the Vice Chancellor. I mean, looking back, any regrets? Is there anything you felt, maybe I should have done this better while on that hot seat?
Really no regrets. I thank God for enabling me to get to that position. It didn't go just like that. You have to progress. And one way or the other, if I could say that becoming Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos was not my original target in academics. As a professional, I was more satisfied with just doing my professional businesses. But somehow, fate took me to that level. I became Deputy Vice Chancellor of the university in 2010. I was invited and got elected in Senate. And as Deputy Vice Chancellor of Management Services, I was supporting and working with the incumbent Vice Chancellor then, Professor Tokunbo Shofulue, who unfortunately passed on. 2012. After in 2012, I worked with him. We worked together for about 2.5 years or 3 years, and so fate just threw that assignment on me to act as Vice Chancellor for 6 months, and by the time the substantive Vice Chancellorship was being held, I got interested and I was brought in, and then I was successful in being appointed the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos. That's 11th Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos. So that I say I was not politically aligned to go in that direction, but I'm certainly, I found myself in there, and I was able to make a good thing out of it.
Okay. I mean, between 2012 and 2017, you spent 5 years, in the saddle.
Full tenure for 5 years.
Yeah. So, but what will you regard as the most challenging moment?
Well, in university administration, particularly in Nigeria, The key problems will have to do with student problems, mainly, which stem from infrastructural decay and infrastructural inadequacies in the institution. But we're able to handle it, and everything will come. What was their grouse? Accommodation problem, hostel conditions, and all kind of thing, which really in other climes the vice chancellor is not really, that's not a challenge. That is supposed to look at how to up the standard of academics, standard of research, standard of other things. But here we have to worry about water supply, we have to worry about electricity supply, we have to worry about even potholes on the roads, as well as even what happens within the hostel. So these are challenges that a vice chancellor in Nigeria faces, which others in other areas face. So along with that, we have to worry about standard academics. We have to worry about adequacy of personnel and resources for your work, as well as how to up the image of the university and the standard of the university. Research, for example, and other new concepts that come in, how to be your concept, how to be things that you push. So if you worry yourself and take all the time on infrastructure, you will not get anywhere. Things will not happen, and you will not really be able to make any mark.
Well, I mean, you were able to, solve that, and I know it's the fear of, vice chancellors, students protest because of the damage, they could do. But I could remember that your tenure saw the restoration of students' union, the government. That was in 2015. I know vice chancellors that would say, no, I don't want no student union. If some even say, we can't have two governments in school. There is the management, which is the government, and there's also the student union, government. I know how students could be. They want everything to be Eldorado. But you brought back student union.
Yeah, that is the irony of it. That's why I will have not expected any uproar or any uprise at that kind of period. When I came in, I promised that we will ensure that we will assist studentship in leadership qualities. And we did train. We trained them. We sent some of them out to UK, to South Africa to learn how student leadership is all about. We brought innovations into student unionism. For example, elections on campus used to be held with court groups taking the sway. We changed all that. We now made it to be delegate situation, and everything works smoothly. You will not even know there was election going on. Every single student was represented in the elections through classes. Every class in every course got represented. So rather than 30,000 or 20,000 students scampering to vote, they will have voted in their classrooms, selected candidates, and then those ones will now go and represent them and vote for the candidates that are there. And so everything went smoothly. The elections were conducted in 2015, went very, very smoothly. And the first governor, after about 10 years, over 10 years, came in because the student union was scrapped about 10 years earlier. During Professor Bezera, when there was such a crisis also, which had to do with, I think, something about fees or something like that, just hostel fees, something like that too. So we had that, but then there's something about student unionism that we should not, if I start discussing that, I won't do it, we won't talk about anything like that. But then student unionism, as the students see it, is not the way that you perceive it in terms of helping them to develop themselves into good leadership qualities.
But did you regret the restoration of students' union?
No regrets.
Okay.
No regrets.
The protest.
But that we did not expect. See, we don't expect that they will go back to the old order so soon.
Okay. So the protest happened after
you
brought back.
There was a first year There was a first executive elected. We managed those ones through. Then the next one came in, and those was one that were not conforming. It's not that we didn't ask them to follow any rule. No rule. They do their things their own way. But then, what we found out then, as I said, if you go into it, is more than what people say outside. They will not obey orders from the student affairs unit. They will not relate. They just want to be on their own. And they were even going out to cause troubles in the community around. In fact, they had a brush with the military around the Sabo station in the morning, one early morning, which created a lot of problems. So a lot of things happened, which we had to now look at. But then the crisis, they came up. We didn't even pick them up on that at that time. Later on, we got more details about what was happening. They came in, wanted a discussion. We discussed, and they said they were not happy with what was going on. And I don't know whether people were pushing them. Of course, Lagos is the hotbed. So anything that happens in Lagos is standard. All over. So there are a lot of interest. I believe there were external influences on them. I think that also comes in. And politics was on there too. So you find a lot of people outside them asking them to do this, scheduling them to go one way or the other, for whatever reason. But we thank God we were able to manage the situation. We were able to placate the students. The school went back normal and everything went on smoothly.
Okay,
of course, unfortunately, student journalism has to be caught again for a period until things normalize again. But you see, whether there's student journalism government in or not, students get represented in whatever is going on, because there will be the faculty leaders. Every faculty will have its leadership, and that's what was happening before the student leadership were picked. What you don't have will be a president and secretary or whatever.
But then, students would prefer to have that structure kind of student unionism, not bringing heads of faculties together.
Faculties come together and then represent and pick among them a student leader. That also represents them too as well. But they want somebody that they elect directly. Fine.
Okay, but which one do you prefer?
We prefer somebody elected by them.
Oh, okay.
But then, if that person conforms properly with the regulations as enshrined in their own student unionism regulations and constitution, but they will flout it, and they will go into things, and there will be rivalry amongst them, and they create unnecessary problem.
Okay, well, anyway,
I think it's something that we need to work on. We keep working on it at University of Lagos, and they want to get better at it and be able to do it.
So, but is there any justification for vice chancellors that would say, no, I don't want any problem, so let student union governments government remains scrapped?
No, I don't agree with that. We should always keep working on them and helping them, because what we need are leaders that will come out tomorrow and be good leaders in the communities. So they start from there. So it's an avenue for them to practice. But what we found a lot of things after during the kind of crisis. We were able to discover the kind of people that come to engineer situations. Some of them had gone into some other schools before. They had practiced unionism, and then they import their own type of unionism into that kind of place. So we found all kinds of situations in the system. So not the real young guys coming to now be able to come together, associate, and lead themselves. We found that there are some prescribed student leaders that come to want to be students at all time and then just come and want to lead, and they want to really impose their own mode of leadership, and that creates problems.
But I know that the university also has the power to screen. You check the track record. You can even disqualify. Anyway, let's leave student unionism.
You learn every day.
Yeah.
You learn, and there's no how you screen. If you screen the other people out, then you are going to run to parliament.
Yeah, it becomes selection.
So you need to allow them. But then later on, during that crisis, we found out some group of people, and these were banned from now going to contest. And I'm sure subsequent ones, they now know who can contest.
Okay, well, no problem. Let's go into the education sector. One of the problems, confronting tertiary education will be funding, and where should this funding, come from? Governments, the students, themselves. I could recall 2 years ago when NASU went on that long strike, asking for revitalization funds of about 2 trillion naira. But the present administration came in and introduced student loan. NEL fund. Well, this has also generated divergent views. No, should we need student loan? Should we not need student loan? How would these students pay back this loan? And can every applicant even get this loan? But what's your take? Let me have your overview about student loan.
Okay. No, well, let me take the funding generally. You see, I've always been an advocate of proper funding of university education, tertiary education in Nigeria, particularly public universities. What we're doing, or what federal government universities were doing were not right. When I was Vice Chancellor, what we were assured of was payment of salaries of staff. What we were being given for overhead was pittance. And during my own era, I was getting about average of 11 million naira per month to run the whole university, including College of Medicine. That was nothing. So we had our internally generated revenue from all the things we do, all kind of businesses, training, all kind of things, and we generate money. So monthly, during my own era, I was spending minimum of 40 million naira on power alone, for just to pay for power supplied. To run generators, we were spending maybe another 20, 30 million naira monthly. You can imagine, and I was getting only 11 million. So you understand? So most of the money we generate on our own, which could have been used to people to support infrastructure and other things, had to be used on running the system. So my belief is that all stakeholders must fund education. The parents, governments, and the public itself. I mean, there are private concerns. Yes.
At what percentage?
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Now they are giving loans to students.
No, let me get at it. Students, see, the way why we're getting it wrong is that private institutions are running, right? Private universities are running. They know, you know how much you pay for every program in there. We should be able to, I presented papers many times and we had it as a policy at the university and wanted to convince government, but we couldn't. We can determine how much we need, and we can determine how much it should cost us to train a student in every program. Okay, for example, say in a Bachelor's of Science degree, it costs maybe 500,000 naira to train one student or something. Maybe the one that have labs, maybe another extra 200,000. You just, hypothetically, just get a figure. And you'll be able to now know what exactly that takes. So when the investor must be able to get that money to run itself properly. Part of that money will be used to pay the staff. It will be used to improve infrastructure, and it will be used to be able to upgrade the university as it moves on to meet normal standards. So we must determine the exact amount we need. So if government is going to take a percentage, it will know what percentage is taken out of that. I did the study in a way that we looked at universities in UK, in Europe, elsewhere, look at their funding pattern. How much goes into paying salaries, how much goes into infrastructure, how much goes into maintaining education facilities and running the school. So you can determine that. So government can take what it pays. I'm going to pay your staff, that's a percentage. Who pays for running the institution or running the programs itself? Maybe students pay that. Who pays for other things, infrastructure? Maybe philanthropists and other private sector people. So we need to look at it in the pragmatic way. where all the funding requirements will be taken care of that. So the ones by student can be on loan if you're unable to pay. The important thing is not to deny access to education to anybody, whether you have resources or not. So if it's by loan, if your parents are not rich and you can access loan to pay, why not? But then government, we have to be able to do it in a way that we know what percentage of the requirement for the funds by the university the students have to pay and what government is paying. Government must pay for infrastructure and a few other things. How much are they putting in? So that's it. But then in doing that also, other things will have to come in. The management of the funds in the institution had to be top A, and no undercurrent, nothing. That's what I'm saying. Why I'm saying that is that the type of counsel you put on the institution and type of people that manage the institution must be those that can be guided and guarded.
Okay, I mean, and that's where it becomes, nebulous. Having people that can be trusted.
There are regulations, and there are bodies that monitor and checks and balances are there.
Yeah, but most times, because I've seen ASU, say, federal government doesn't even check the books. They don't audit.
They do. They do. When I was there,
in UI, I think that was 2020, when they said the auditor went blind, so the account was not audited for like 6 years.
No. If that happens, then there must have been a lapse from one authority or the other. Number one, you're supposed to hire, the council is supposed to hire an external auditor to audit the accounts. And the audited account is supposed to be submitted to the federal government annually. That's the one that the Public Accounts Committee of either the House of Rep or Senate takes to the Auditor's Attorney General's office and scrutinize and invite you and they will examine it and then be able to raise questions on anything that's found wanting over it. You must have heard about that many times from the National Assembly.
About times, what comes out of it?
Nothing really. There are times when they find some negativities and they bring them to book. It's been done many times.
I mean, who pays for that? I feel at times it's just swept under the carpet.
No. The incumbent that has any challenge will have to face it. There have been times when they found that maybe some vice laws spent some money to do fence that was a bit. No, ICPC was invited in some cases. EFCC took some cases. There have been cases.
I mean, I can't recall the last time a vice chancellor was jailed or.
No, I think there was something about, was it the boss or something, or the advisor of one of the northern universities that had challenges about not long ago.
That's just one out of many. Because according to SERAP.
What is the money, how much money is available to embezzle? Well, I'm not saying they don't have, people can embezzle, but it's only if when you have free money that will occur. But then there's a guideline on how you do procurement, particularly federal universities. You have the Procurement Act. You cannot just go and buy anything without authorities. There's a limit to what you can spend within your own university. Anything beyond that, you take it to the Ministerial Tenders Board. After that, you go to FEC. So there are regulations that you must follow. And if you do that, the Accountant General Office send people every quarter to monitor your funds. The Auditor General's Office send people every quarter to monitor the expense in the university. If they collude, it will be obvious.
But at times, I mean, these people could,
if they collude, then that's a different thing. Yeah. But then, at one time or another, something it will come out. People have forgotten that university system is a system that has a lot of hotheads and things, and any undercurrent will come out through petitions. People, when they have facts, they will send it out on petition, either to AFCC, to ICPC, and they will come and do. The SSS comes at time and pick things up. So.
But according to SERAP, I mean, they claim there's a high level of corruption in Nigerian universities. contracts, inflation, employment of unqualified staff, certificates, scandal, sexual harassment, and so on.
Those are generalized situations. You cannot pick that up on every situation. Yes, there will be, in any society, there are bound to be those who flout laws and do undercurrent things. But it will be one-off. It's not the norm. Those are not the norms in every university. I can vouch for University of Lagos, where I serve, and I know what goes on there.
Yeah, well, maybe you can
And I know
vouch
what
for
goes on.
yourself,
Yeah, because
and
no,
not those that
well,
succeeded
yeah,
you.
well,
Because you don't know their books.
I don't know. I've not seen their books, but I know if they don't follow the regulation, they can be picked up, and they get picked up. It's a balance between what goes on and what should go on, and it should be checked. It can be easily checked. Anybody can check. We have freedom of information. You can ask for information. You can get anything. And if you show, okay, there was this contract, you can write to check. We know about this contract. What happened?
But what about the management of the IGR? Because I know that many universities have sandwich programs, which may not be that known to the government because it's run,
everything that comes in, the TSA was introduced. So what was the TSA for? Whether it's IGR or government money, every money that comes into thing goes through that single account. You open accounts in Treasury, single account, and everything is there. And now the money moves in and out. So you can investigate how the money is going there, how they are spent. You see. So it is easy for anybody investigating to see. So that's why you can detect fraud. If they are spending the money anyhow, you can see whether they paid thrice for a product or anything that's happened. What I'm trying to say, what I'm telling you is that the IGR is being spent to run the institution because the overhead money that has been given cannot even scratch the surface of what is required. I'll give you an example of what I was getting. I was getting average of 11 million naira a month to run university. That can run a department, a key department. Not talk of running, how many departments do we have? Each department will have monthly expenses, all that. You have to maintain all the facilities in terms of, that's why a lot of infrastructure get decayed, because there's no money to maintain them. Of course, you have to give power. You have to pay for water and all the services. That one consumes most of your money. If that was before Band A. You can imagine what happened with Band A, and that's why most of the universities had to be shut down.
That's why students protest,
and
because
that's
they
why
know what their peers enjoy in other countries, even in neighboring countries.
Yeah, in other countries they do, but then the money available to the university in those countries are different. That's what I was saying. That the university should not matter where the university should not be concerned about where the money is coming from. What should concern the university is, I need this money to train these people. Let me have that money. Then come and probe how I use that money to train them and make them comfortable. In most clients, as I said, I don't worry about hostel accommodation. They will be taken care of by the municipality, isn't it? I don't worry about electricity. They are taken about by the municipality. Also, water and other services, internet, everything. But here you have to do everything.
Though there's a Department of Works that does that.
But university pays for everything.
So as Vice Chancellor, just meant to supervise them to ensure that they do the right thing.
What if there's money to do it? What happens? If there's not enough money to be able to handle what they need, then you can't do it. That's what I'm saying. Whereas in Europe, in US, the city itself or the state government or whatever handles all those things, and those are normal things for everybody. You understand what I'm saying? But here, the university, because it's not a normal thing in the cities we have here, so you have to specially create that and maintain that in that standard in your university. And there's not enough money for it. Why wouldn't there be crisis?
And I know there are peculiar challenges, affecting the University of Lagos, and one of it will be accommodation. There are many students, not all of them can get accommodation in school. They have to go off campus where they pay, heavily. I think there's a ballot system, for them to get accommodation. Not everybody, gets, that chance. But I know Unilearning does something.
There's hardly any university that has enough accommodation for everybody. Hardly any university. But it's easier in some places than others, because the cost of living in those cities are not the same as in Lagos. And these are the challenges that we have in the university system in Nigeria. You pay every lecturer the same rate, whether they work in Lagos, or they work in Ibadan, or they work in Abeokuta, or they work in Maduguri, or Sokoto. They get the same salary.
Should they be paid differently? Won't that lead to discrimination?
Cost of living is different everywhere. I can get, if I want a 3-bedroom flat in Abeokuta, how much does it go for? If I'm a professor here, a lecturer here, I can get a 3-bedroom flat. To get it at that rate in Lagos, you'll be living almost 30 kilometers away from the campus. And to get to a campus for work in the morning will be killing. I hope you understand what I'm trying to say. So the cost of living index has to be built up in the salaries of staff. And that's why universities should be able to take up funding on their own, be able to pay their own staff based on what to suit them and motivate them to be able to do the work and get to. We want all our universities to be rated as first 10 or first 5 in the world and everything. But we're not providing the facility. We're not motivating the staff, the research. We're not creating research facilities and funds to be able to really get to that level. So there are a lot of things that need to be really done properly, so that we'll be able to really get the right situation, to be able to see the kind of things we expect.
Yeah. But now with the high cost of power, there are talks that, federal universities, particularly big universities like UNILAG, I think OAU has gone off-grid, perhaps the only federal university that has been able to achieve that. There are so many talks about UNILAG going off-grid and all of that. You have the water. Why has this so become? Is this even feasible? Because if you go off-grid, then you won't spend that much on power.
Well, how did the IFE go off-grid?
You see, federal government, I think so,
rural electrification, the
agency.
I remember during I think it was Governor Fashola that was the minister of works, even power and energy at that time. So at that point in time, because of the crisis that was coming up, energy thing, the government then asked Rural Electric Energy to give this off-grid power supply thing to each of these key universities. University of Lagos was supposed to benefit from a gas-powered IPP. I think along with IFE also. I think Ibadan was supposed to have solar and a few other investors. So they were all in that. I signed the paper in 2017 before I left for that purpose. I think there was a change in government or something, or changing something, or they changed the minister and everything just went up. That thing we signed, that agreement they signed, that contract they signed, that never got done. And that's why the crisis of Bande and everything caught up with them. Otherwise, this would have been done within 2 years, and the people would have been running by now, and they would have been benefiting.
I think I could say that this is like the most difficult time ever.
Going back to the same that would have been done 10 years ago, or 8 to 10 years ago, is now being again brought up again. And I don't know what the cost will be like now. So maybe at a much higher cost.
Now, you're a professor of chemistry.
Definitely we need to do something
about it, because I feel this is like the most difficult time ever to become a vice chancellor, particularly with the cost of power.
No, let me tell you something. You see, in a university like that of University of Lagos, research should be our concern. High-class research. And one thing that we did during my era was to commence research at a higher level. So I created that research, a new research unit that was supposed to encourage collaborative research and then be able to help the staff to connect with outside researchers and get grants from outside. And that has become the main thing, bringing a lot of funds to the university today.
But there are limited grants, out there these days.
There are a lot of grants there. Once you are good, you are invited in. If you look at the records of University of Lagos today, the research grants that's coming in is massive. And during my successor's tenure, I think the figures were given. And it's been increased even now. It increased every day because once you form yourself into clusters and it's multidisciplinary, research, the way they want it, you get recognized. And there are bodies outside from Europe, from US, that wants collaboration, that will work with you. And usually we're a center, and they just, like a center. So research comes in.
I know in UI they will say, it's either you perish, it's either you publish, or perish.
Publication comes in from research, but then after research, if you don't do good research, you can't publish properly. Publication helps you to move in the ladder. Yes. Okay, you have to be able to do that. But then doing active research that is meaningful and purposeful is another thing.
But it will also result in publication. If you've done something meaningful, you want to publish it.
Most of the time you're a professor, you don't just become a professor and just sit down. Yeah. You now profess what you are a professor on by being able to bring out that exposure, experience in you, to be able to get things done and bring new concepts and new ideas. And they are trained new PhDs, new MScs that will now collaborate with you in research. That's the way it is. So, but if there's no funding, there are no facilities and funding, then people will just become professors and sit back and nothing will happen. And you can't use them.
Professor, at times it can also be Herculean because, a lecturer does three things: conducts, research, a lecturer teaches and engages, its community. Yeah. So I also seen a case in which the lecturer is just traveling up and down, does not even have time to, lecture, our students.
No, that's be a balance. Yeah, there are times. Even when I was in my graduate school, my professor that I worked with was globetrotting to look for funds. But his lectures were being taken by research fellows that he pays for. So he'll be thorough. He will come back and reflect on it. He will come in. He may not teach you throughout the whole period, but someone will be teaching continuously and he comes in and reviews. That's his experience. But he has to bring the money for research into the place because that's what is being funded for.
So what now happens what happens if every lecturer is globetrotting? But you just said now that they should go out there and look for grants.
There are some so you usually have groups. In most places you have research groups. The leader must look for fund for the group, for research the group is doing. But there are many professors there, but they'll be head.
What is the healthy competition of, I also want to globetrot, I also want to go out there and look for, grants.
No, you don't have to travel out. You don't have to travel. You can be here. What you need is to be able to write good proposals.
Nigeria, lecturers want to go out there for conference. They want to travel out for conference. To go to Germany, go to London.
That should not disturb your lectures. Your lecture hours, usually most of the conferences are done during holidays. Most conferences.
But the calendars are different. And it could come anytime.
For a conference, maybe 3 days, 4 days. You go for 1 day to the conference. That doesn't make, you have lectures for 8, 12, 16 weeks. Okay? And you take maybe 2 hours a week for 16 weeks for some classes. So if you miss 2, you can always make up. So there's no excuse. There's a balance between your lecture and your research, and then community services. Community services is one that could disrupt. Because if you are taking away to go and permanently do a service, then you are not available for the others at that moment.
So in the pecking order, we could say community service is third. Because not everybody has time. Not everybody, because you have to lecture, you want to do good, meaningful research.
You have to, it's research and teaching that are key. The community work comes in as a service when it's needed.
But the community work bridges the gap between the town and gown. So if you also prioritize the community work, then the gap gets wider. That's what we have in now, because there's a large gap between the town and the gown.
No, when we talk about gap between town and gown, there's a different situation. The service is different. A service, you recognize somebody in there because he's able to offer us something for living. He's invited to go and please help us do this. So that is service. The bridge between town and gown, your research is supposed to be on improving the town. And so you taking your research to the town is where you bring that's a different thing entirely. So be able to really carry out research that will influence the town is what is key. And that is what should be the object. And that's why your research should not be just like you mentioned earlier, just for publication to go. It should be a research that should be meaningful to help the nation grow or to help challenges that we have within the nation, whatever it is. But the problem is people carry out researches. Researches are carried out properly, but we don't have the wherewithal nationally to utilize most of this research to help the town and the communities. That's where the challenges are not challenges with Nigeria. We're funding research. I think we're just slowly going to that. We're trying to they are trying to create a national research fund now. We fund research now through TED Fund and TED Fund mainly for research and all that. But then you have to have bodies. Usually in most other countries, the research institutes collaborate with the universities, and they are the ones that will practicalize some of the things that are of research front and bring it out to use outside. In some countries, they have other agencies that come in between the private sector and the researchers that will now be the bridge that will test the waters of the things in town, and then the private sector will now pick it up for massive use and mass production. But there are a lot of things that you can do. We have to
run because our time is fast spent, and I still have a few questions here. Now, let me take you to the HND, BSc, dichotomy. And also recently we've seen upgrade of polytechnics to university. So we say conversion. Some say, oh no, it's an upgrade, to universities. And yes, mixed reactions also are trailing this. Let's have polytechnics be polytechnics and universities because the purpose, quite different. But there also been clamor that why this dichotomy is like polytechnic graduates are second class citizens. And in the field of engineering, I've seen graduates of elect mechanical engineering that they cannot even do the basic things. And an elect person cannot even fix the bulb. A mechanical engineer cannot do anything. And they say, oh, in school we're just taught the theories. We're not taught to fix things. Those in polytechnics are the technicians that can do this. And there are also proposals of can we couple both together? Maybe these students should go to the polytechnic for 2 years, have an ND, and then come to the university so that they can then marry practicals with theories.
Well, what I would say is that in the engineering practice, I'm a professor of engineering, chemical engineering. But at the same time, you see, I'm a product of a polytechnic. I got an OND before I went to the university. But that is something else. But what I'm trying to say is, what we have in Nigeria today in engineering practice is what we call an inverted pyramid. Inverted pyramid. You know what a pyramid is? Okay. Today I'm the president of the Academy of Engineering, which is the topmost engineering thing in here. We are working at that, and government is trying to work at that to reverse the pyramid. Usually what we expect is the largest number of practitioners should be artisans and technicians. Today in Nigeria, they are the least in terms of practice. We import people from neighboring countries to do tiling, to do brick work and everything. We don't have artisans. Nobody wants to learn at that level.
And the ones we have, we do also respect them.
No,
And they are not well paid. And when they go to foreign countries, when they go to other countries, I mean, they enjoy the food better.
No, that's what I'm saying. No, it's not being paid. You see, it's the way we take everything to be governmental. We believe in government jobs more than anything else. During the colonial era, there are all those that were doing all those things that we're talking about were artisans and technicians, and they were doing the trade tests in the labor. It was labor department that was doing that. They would do the trade tests. Those who go to technical colleges or technical schools then, or trade centers and technical schools then, would take city and guilds and move on. You have stage by stage city and guilds. See, with this, we are slowly coming back to that. Whether you get a degree or you get a HND or anything, if you don't have the skills, you are nothing in practice. And that is the major problem that we have. We have quite a lot of people with paper certificates without skills. And that's why I must turn everything around. I've been to Philippines on one of my assignments before. In Philippines, they make money with human resources. In fact, they export human resources. That is why you go in our oil and gas industry here, most of the welders are Filipinos because they are certified, they get certification. It's not whether they get a degree or HND or anything that matters. It's the certificate you have to show your competence in that skill that matters. You get my point? That is the practice in real world. So in Philippines, people will go and get first degree and now go and learn welding. They have the theory, they have everything in the background, but they can't do anything with it. So it's one now, but when they get to the job, they now learn it and do it professionally. So when they are well sought for outside. And that's why they are well paid when they go to do international jobs. There are we have a few very specialized people also in the oil industry that are Nigerians here, but there are few. So we need to increase that number. And it is skilling that matters, not certificate you hold. But in Nigeria, we rely on certificates. That's why we believe in certificates.
So, but the skills you just spoke about, should those skills be acquired in school or outside school? They are basic trainings. We used to have trade centers and technical schools. We are there today. They have been thrown to the background. We are just talking about, nationally, they are coming back with what they call, there's a bill on National Skill Qualification Framework, NSQF, which is now being in place. That we must have had TVET, Technical and Professional Education. So it's now being revived. And that is where the skills are. In every area. Engineering, building, mention it, architecture, in even horticulture, you have all the skills that are there. Even those doing wiring, those doing cabling, all the things, those are skills. So you go out into any of the first world countries with a skill, you'll be okay. But with a certificate, you may not be okay, right? But here, we rely on, I have a master's. You get my point? I have a BSc, I have a HND, I have a, but what can you do with your hand? But what about those that will say university education is purely theoretical?
No, universal education, see, the way it was before in the colonial era, you have, for engineering, for example, you have the artisans, you have the technicians, you have the technologists, and then you now have the engineers. Okay? Usually, when I say pyramid, when I thought about the pyramid, there's supposed to be just a few number of engineers on top. More technologists to support the engineering work. Then a large number of technicians to support the technologies. And then artisans.
So the engineers will only give
Just
instruction.
a few, no, no, let me give you how it works. When you take, for example, a small thing there, a small thing that has been done. In the construction, you have maybe a machinist that will machine a part, make a bolt, make a part and everything. The machine, each one will do that. Okay? The technologist comes in, that's at technician level. Technologist come in, is able to put it together into a small unit. Okay? So you have one unit of a big project, another one does a unit of the project. Then the engineer now comes in, be able to design the whole thing, and so he takes part A from here, part B from there, uses other technologies to mount them together, and becomes the main project that you are looking for, like a car, for example. So that's the way it works.
So it's a chain work.
So it's a chain work. You can have a part of a car being produced by a series of engineers and technologists, but there have been more technicians, less technologists, and less engineers. But what we have here, what we have done is that we have produced engineers.
Because there's this fight for supremacy. Those at the lower rung of the ladder will say, we are the ones doing all the work. We are getting the lowest.
What work are they doing? The work they are doing, that's what I'm saying, the work they are doing is measured. If it's a private sector, if it's in government, that's where the problem comes in. We're looking at, we measure, I think, by government jobs, rather by the real private sector jobs. In private jobs, they will pay appropriately. They will pay for the hours they are working on, and they will get paid for the expertise they have, certification they have, and the skills they have. But if you want government skills, if I'm working for government, of course, the lower the certificate, the less the pay.
Okay. But what about this dichotomy? Some would say, well, professors do not lecture in polytechnics, so why do you want to scrap this dichotomy? That's, I mean, the graduates, from these institutions are quite different.
Those that will say all those I'm talking about are still in public sector jobs. All those dichotomy things and fighting over whether they are equal or not, is in public sector jobs. They don't operate in private sectors. An HND holder can be earning more than an engineer based on what he can do, and based on the needs in the private sector.
Should the dichotomy be scrapped?
I don't know. It depends on what they do. There's a function that every job has a description. So if you have a description for a job that is for an HND holders, you pay the person based on that purpose, on that basis. See, we've been operating what the colonial masters left. You have to adjust it properly. Unfortunately, of course, also you go to Britain today, you hardly find polytechnics. Yeah. They've been upgraded. Yeah. So where are we? We are in between. That's why I'm saying that we see operating at what the colonial authorities left for us without, we are taking part of what operates in the US, we take part of what operates in the UK and mix them up, and we are in between.
Okay. Well,
so whether it's HND or it doesn't matter. Most of these problems come up in the public sector. But private sector doesn't care, because all it needs is, I want this job done, and by who can do it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Professor Raham Bello. Lastly, let me bring you home now. You are the chairman of People Development Council. And I know there's this Yiwa Educational Summit. So can you tell us about that? What you've been doing at that level? What's the People Development Council, all about? So what kind of development are you bringing to Yiwa?
Well, Development Council, we are People Development Council is a creation of the Educational Council to be able to coordinate the very many development groups that exist. You have all kind of people that are working on development in order to be able to really get them focused and so that we can see some development going on. We have this council, which the council doesn't have individual members. It has organizations as its members. So the organizations are represented so we can now discuss major things that we need to do and all of us come together to partake in them. For example, like you mentioned, the Your Education Summit, we look at education as one of the challenges. So we're trying to come together, all the development organs or groups or associations in Yewa land that are in there will come together, will sit together, brainstorm on the challenges of education in Yewa land. We have all kind of challenges because of our location mainly. We are on the boundary, we are a rural community, everything, and so education is not at the level that it should be. And so we want to confront that, we want to discuss on that and be able to come up with actionable plans that we can use to be able to now upgrade the level of education in that place.
Thank you so much, Professor Raham Bello. It's been a pleasure, discussing, all this with you, and you've been able to provide, a solution. Because you've seen it all. Former Vice Chancellor, University of Lagos, and you are the fellow at the Nigerian Academy of, President Nigerian Academy of Engineering, and all of that. So best of luck in your pursuits. Thank you so much, Professor. Well, that's the show today, Hot Seats, with Professor Raham Bello, the former Vice Chancellor of University of Lagos, and also Pro-Chancellor of Tertiary University of Education, Fellow, Nigerian Academy of Engineering, Nigerian Society of Engineers, Nigerian Society of Chemical Engineers. We'll be able to touch on several challenges affecting particularly university education in Nigeria. So that's the show today. Many thanks for joining us. Till next week when I come your way with another eminent personality, I say to you, stay safe and stay out of trouble. Bye for now.